Hello everyone and welcome to Book Club Live. Now, I'm going to go off script a little bit. I've been given my cue cards and I'm already going off script. So this is our very first Book Club Live, and let me tell you, it is genuinely live. And the reason that I can tell you it is live is we're 10 minutes late, as you know, and we had a major technical disaster just before we went live. So we had 3 cameras and we're down to 1 camera, but that does mean that we can still talk to you. So this is our very first Book Club Live. Please bear with us if anything goes wrong, but we'll get it right as we go along. We've got 3 really interesting guests and 3 really interesting books that we've been reading and reviewing, and we'd like to know your opinion. For me, reading is really good in terms of a relaxing thing to do within a business environment, but it's also, I'm not snobby about it, so reading however you do that in whatever format. So all of the books that we are going to talk you through today either appear in a hard copy format, in a paperback, in an Audible format, or on a Kindle or other reading device. So however you read your book is absolutely fine by us, but we just hope with this process we stimulate you to look at new ways of thinking about things. We give you enough advice and enough ideas and a true, honest opinion about our review of the book and what we truly feel as well. We are not sponsored by any publishing companies or by any other companies that tells us the books, how we should read them, what we should read and what we should say about them. So the opinions that you're getting are our true and honest opinion. Sometimes positive, sometimes not so positive. And we'll cover all of those things with you. So, I'm really pleased to invite you, post-COVID, post the disaster that was December, our very first Book Club Live. And I wanted to introduce you to our very first guest, Nick.
Hello.
So, this is Nick Wetherell. Nick Wetherell is actually the marketing manager at EMS. And as such, what I wanted to do when we chose our first book was look at something that was a little bit out of his comfort zone and something that he could learn from and something that we could all learn through his experience. So I think it's safe to say, Nick, that accounts and accounting are not your natural
Not in the least
happy
bit,
place.
no. Number, no.
Okay, so the book that we chose to read is a book called Profit First by the author Mike Michaljevic. Now, I'll give you my opinion afterwards, but first of all, let's talk to Nick. So, Nick, tell me about the book. What did you like, first of all?
For myself, being in my current situation, I'm currently, I looked at this book and I don't, like many people, I don't run the business, I work within it. So it was very interesting to learn about the book in the sense of, okay, that's how a business could be run. But it's also something that the bit I really liked about it, I looked at it in a very selfish manner of how I could apply the concept of having profit first within my personal life. Yeah. And I actually found it helped me save quite a lot of money, really. It was one of those, it really changes the way that you flip the concept on the head of it's not sales minus expenses equals profit. It's the complete other way around. You take the profit from the whole process. When you read the book, it really makes more and more sense. One of the things I liked the most about the book was the fact it was really down to earth. Yeah. And it wasn't like you get lots of these books where they are very, look at me, look at everything I've achieved. And it was actually no, it was very real and was very, I've made mistakes. Please don't copy my mistakes. Yeah. This is my big takeaway that you should learn. That was the one thing that really stood out to me. Right. The one of many things that have just stumbled out, but yeah.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I agree with it. And I have to tell you, I love this book. This is one of my favourite books.
Well, funnily enough, you recommended it to me to read before we threw around the concept of Book Club Live. Phil actually recommended the book to me.
And I do love it. And the reason that I love it is for just exactly what you've said. It works in a personal bit, it works on a personal basis, and it works on a business basis. And so many times in my day job, working with different businesses, I find the concept of profit something that people don't consider, and just flipping it on its head and putting profit as the main emphasis on what somebody wants to get out of their business makes people look at their business in a different way, all the way through their business. So although this is predominantly a numbers-based book, don't be put off with that because it's not a technical numbers book.
Not in the least bit. I'll be honest. I got through the first 3-4 chapters. I was like, wow, this is really great. Then I saw the bit where it started to talk about numbers, and I went, oh, I'm not sure this is the book for me. But powered through, and I actually found. Don't get me wrong, it took me a little bit to read, but that was because I was trying to really understand it. It wasn't overly complex. It was just that's not my forte, and it was quite powerful to think of how a business could be run and not how it's traditionally taught. Yeah.
I think from my point of view, so the author Mike Michaljevic has written lots of books, and there's a number of his books that I find really, really interesting, and. But the one out of all of them that I think has had the biggest impact is Profit First. So there are accountants now that will work on the Profit First basis, basically. So we'll compile your small business accounts based on profit. And I think, for me, I wondered whether it definitely reached me as somebody who owns a business and looks at the sort of integration of the numbers within the business. But do you think it would reach an audience generally? Do you think for our audience it would reach them, or do you think they would be scared?
When you say our audience, you're talking about the business owners or the people within the business?
I think the business owner, really. So somebody who's looking at their business from a perspective of what do we do with the profits within this business?
No matter what the outcome of that answer was, it was always going to be yes. Because like I've said, but like I said myself, I took it from a selfish perspective, how I could apply it, but I've also applied.
I'm going to stop you then and just you applied it to yourself. What particular thing did?
So the thing that always stood out to me, not spoiler alert, one of the things Mike talks about within the book is not having one bank account, and it's about having separate different ones for separate different roles. Don't get me wrong. In my personal life, I had a bills account and I had a fun account. That was it. So if I wanted to go out on the weekend, I could go and use the fun account and make sure the money was always in the bills account to pay for the bills. Whereas now I have 5 different pots of money. Right. Not that I'm a big shot with money filled with all of them, but there is still that bills account, that fun account. But then there's the rainy day account. One of the things that's from a personal perspective, it's not necessarily as some in the UK we pay tax on when it comes through in our paycheck. So we don't necessarily have to worry about that for a tax perspective.
Unless you're a small business.
Yeah, unless you're a small business owner, I should say that. But from a personal perspective, that was then become it's a rainy day account, or it's a future endeavours of, funny enough, I've used that account of money to save to go and look to buy a house in the future.
Absolutely,
yeah. So it's applicable in both the sense of thinking of putting your business in no matter whether you're a startup or you've been going for a while, it allows you to think about growing what you're doing and applying it. Right, I know come January 31st, I've got money in the account to pay for that tax bill when it comes in.
Right, okay, fantastic. So I'm just going to throw over to the live team and ask, are there any questions from the viewers at the moment on this book? So this book is Profit First by Mike Michaljevic. It is available in all bookstores. We're looking at our team and we're looking and we can't see. So this is the new technical way that we'll do it. We have a question.
So Josie has admitted herself that she had to read it a few times to really absorb it.
Yeah, and I would agree, Josie, as well. It is, particularly, I happen to know who you are, and I know that you are a creative person in terms of your business, but also your approach to things as well. And I think sometimes the creative brain, and I know he describes this really is around, it's how you use that creativity. And once you get the numbers and the way that he described it, you can use that. Obviously, we're not advocating creative accounts, but using the profit within the business in a creative way as well is a really good way of doing it. And I do think sometimes you do have to read things more than once to be able to get it. Honestly, I've read Profit First a few times, and it's one of those books that I end up going back to a number of times as well with different clients. For me, it's a really good teaching tool to be able to get people who are small business owners to think in a new way, not just, robbing Peter to pay Paul, not just that rainy day fund that you were talking about, but also the longer term investment within the business. So we have another question, which is about a bank balance. So bank balance accounting as a business owner, how identifiable is this? So I believe what we're talking about here is in terms of what you use your money for. So when we're talking about a bank balance, we're not talking about somebody who has a lot of money in the bank. We're not talking about an ultra successful business. We're talking about any size of business. We're talking about a business that is brand new. And actually, Profit First really is an easier system to implement as a brand new business, because you don't have anything to fall back on. You can implement it straight away. You don't have to change things. But actually, for me, and I don't know about you, Nick, I found that in addressing the issues within smaller businesses, Profit First was really good and implementable. You do need three bank accounts to be able to do it successfully. But they can be your main bank account plus 2 savings accounts. That's not an issue at all. And any of the major banks providers will do that for you as well. Okay, so one more question for you.
Go on, okay.
After reading the book, what did you think of Mike Mikhailovich as an author?
I have to say, it's like I said at the beginning, one of the things I really loved was it wasn't made up fairy tale, look at what I've done. It was really down to earth. I mean, some of the chapters in it, quite on, it does tell a bit of a sad story, but it has, one of the things I really liked about it was it wasn't reading and it wasn't deadly serious. It had moments of, this is like a really surreal, funny moment where he has, I think the eureka moment he has within it was, it was 3 a.m. in the morning on, he's an American author, so he's watching PBS, and he's just sat there with a bowl of cereal, looking at his daughter's piggy bank, thinking, I've got no income coming in this month, and that's looking very tasty. And he sees whatever it was on the television, and it made him go, that's it. And there was just the way he wrote that down. I've probably butchered it in the way I've described it, but the way he wrote that made me go, okay, it made me actually have like a little, lol, out loud.
And I get that story as well, and it's that moment as a business owner where you've literally got no money coming in, and it's that, I suppose it's like when you're on a diet and you see, a Mars bar in front of you, it's the thing that and he sees the piggy bank, he's got no money, and he's thinking, actually, that's the way that I'm going to raise it. And that was a stimulus for his whole thing. Yeah. Really good. Okay, so is it a hit or is it a miss?
Massive.
We're going back, I'm showing my age now. Is it a hit or is it a miss?
It's a massive hit. I highly recommend it.
Okay, and I would agree, actually. If you haven't read it, it's definitely worth reading. So that's Profit First by Mike Mikhailovich. He also has a really good website based on that as well, which is www.profitfirst.com. And there's some free downloads on there that are definitely worth having a look at, and some really good videos as well. So Profit First, Mike Mikhailovich. Our first book is a hit. Okay, so thanks so much, Nick. Thanks for joining us. And we're going to do a quick change now, and we have another special guest ready to join us to talk to us about their book choice. Hello. Hi, Damian. So my second guest is Damian Warriner, who is one of the business advisors at Enterprise Made Simple, EMS. And when we set out this book club, the members of our company talked about some of the books that we liked and some of the things that had really stimulated our thoughts and working with clients and working with different businesses. And the book that Damian chose was The Lean Startup by Eric Rice. I'm going to go with Reese.
I say Reese.
Okay, right, that's fine. And so for me, this again was a book that I'd read that I think is really good. But I'm going to ask Damian about it. So tell me about the book, Damian. What do you think the purpose was?
The purpose of the book I picked up on was just if you have an idea and you want to see your business going to work, you don't necessarily have to throw every bit of finance you have at it. The the idea is, does somebody actually want what it is that you're selling?
Yeah.
And this is a clever way of trying to figure out whether or not it's worth putting your money in, or where your mouth is.
Yeah. So for me, in terms of the lean startup, it's all about developing the idea a little further.
Yeah.
I think if
A little
you,
quicker as well.
It is, yeah. And if you get a common theme from today, from all of the books that we've read, there is a line working through it that basically is about ideas, because ideas are the key for anybody starting a business, aren't they? I don't know about you, but the thing that was interesting to me was where they described the fact of lean was used really regularly in big manufacturing companies, and the ability for them to then sort of distill that and use that within smaller businesses as well. There's so many similarities, isn't there? You don't think of a big production line being as the same as a small cafe, for example.
Yeah.
For example.
Lean is like, it doesn't mean the cheapest, it doesn't mean on a minimal budget, it kind of means trimming the fat, it kind of means you don't have to build the full cake, you just need to see whether or not the skeleton in its own right has got enough interest for it to be a business.
Yeah, and I think the examples that they gave as well, in terms of the pyramid, in
Yep.
terms of the way that they were building things, in terms of the functionality that they would put in within a business, I think function is a key, isn't it? And I'll give you a little warm-up for one of the other books that we're reading. Lean can work alongside both the Profit First book and the next book as well. I suppose the adoption of some of the lean principles is a really strong sort of development tool, if you like.
Yeah, like part of the cycle, the build, measure, learn cycle, it is very much a case of, does it work? Build it, let your customers test it out,
Yeah.
analyse the data that they give you, did they like it, did they want to purchase it, and then do the exact same again, learn from it. The more you fail, the sooner you get it right, and that's a big lesson that comes from it.
Definitely, I think that's true. So, from your point of view, what do you think the purpose of the book is? What's the main takeaway that you think a business would take from, or a business owner, or somebody who's around in a business as well? What would they take away from this?
We all have a hypothesis of what the customer wants and what we think they need, when sometimes the reality is slightly different.
Right.
Oh, that was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very good, actually.
Do you want me to elaborate?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the idea that, I think one of the stories was a web delivery grocery service. And they spent a fortune assuming that customers wanted all their groceries delivered by a van. They set up warehouses around the country in America. And then after a while, after spending up to £1 billion, they realised they had to foreclose everything because there wasn't enough customers for what they wanted.
Right.
Instead, they went online.
Okay, so they were manually delivering things.
Yeah, it was
and
web.
they changed their business models as well.
Yes.
Right. Okay, that's really interesting. So, it is a business book, and it is a traditional business book in terms of there's a sort of a start, middle, and an end of the journey in this book. Do you think that works in this instance for a business owner?
Yeah, it definitely pulls you along. It's not a slow read by any sense of the word. It's not a difficult one. It keeps you engaged. It doesn't try and baffle you with business terminology and certain constructs that the businesses put in sometimes, but it will engage you, it will pull you in, it'll make you get your pen and paper out and jot a few ideas down. It definitely sparks the creative juices.
Fantastic, excellent. Do we have any questions from our viewers? No? So we're talking about The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. If I had to ask you, what was the one lesson that you took from this that you thought you would give, particularly to your clients actually that you deal with, the smaller businesses, what would be the most important thing that you would say to them?
Get your idea or your business to the customer as quickly as possible and figure out what they say about it.
Okay.
The best, the most commonly known example is Dropbox. The guy did a 4-minute video explaining exactly how Dropbox worked, and then picked up, I think it was like 3,000 orders the following day.
Right.
Turned out he'd never actually made Dropbox, he never developed it, and as a result, the spark of interest led him to financing that actual software that we all use on a daily basis almost.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. Excellent. So, just again, to everybody who's watching, that was The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. And I'm now going to shamelessly talk to the camera while we change and say thank you very much
Thank you.
to Damian and introduce our very next guest. So that's 2 books that we've read so far. We've read Profit First by Mike Mikhailovich and The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Now, I'm really grateful to our 3rd guest for being here, the amazing Lucy Patterson. So Lucy's business is Flourish Unlimited, and her premise, her all actually really, is about helping female-founded startups, social enterprises and early growth stage businesses to become sustainable. And I have to add that I've worked with Lucy, I've travelled with Lucy, and we've been to America together, and we've worked on a number of things together from a business perspective as well. And the one thing that I know that Lucy is brilliant at actually, and really knowledgeable about, is the book that we read. So it is called The Design Thinking Playbook. Now, this book is by Wiley and by Michael Lorick, Patrick Link and Larry Leifer.
Yeah, I'm glad you pronounced it.
I know,
not
yeah.
me.
I was a bit worried with that one. So I'm going to sort of declare an interest before we even start. I am really passionate about design thinking and the difference that it can make in people's businesses. And I know I share that in common with Lucy. So a year ago today, Lucy and I were in a classroom in Boston at Babson College talking about design thinking with an amazing person called Catherine Londgren, and she did a design thinking process with us. So we had, coming to this book, we had some prior knowledge of design thinking. So Lucy, tell me about the book. What do you think?
Well, to be fair, this is one of the original books out there that is on design thinking, and it's probably the most theoretical of all of them, and it still has pictures, which is what I love. And they've broken them down now and brought out various handbooks and sort of tool books and things, and they go more in depth. But I just love the fact that whether it's the book, whether it's design thinking, it's not an iterative process. And you hear that people say that all the time, oh, it's non-iterative. What does that mean? It means it actually fits with your journey as a small business owner, as your journey in life. You know, you go 2 steps forward, you go 1 step back, you try something else, you fail at something. And so for me, it's a much more realistic way of looking at a business than just expecting that straight sort of A to Z of a journey.
Absolutely.
And I think that the very fact that it doesn't just start with the idea, it takes it back a step from that. It allows you to define, is there a problem there? Am I sort of dealing with the right problem? What question do I need to ask? And it gets you to then empathise at that stage, rather than just come up sort of, let's do some blue sky thinking, let's get all the ideas out there, take something, you know, even to a prototype before market and think, nobody wants to buy this because we've solved the wrong problem.
Absolutely.
And that's sort of where my passion comes into it, that it allows you to be creative, it allows you to have a point of view, and it allows you to really make sure, you know, I guess the easiest way of me explaining it is that when people come, and obviously I talk about design thinking to them, many a person will say, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. And sometimes the wheel doesn't need reinventing because the wheel's not actually solving the problem it was originally there for. So you need to take it back a step. You know, I think for a new business, it's great to know the audience immediately. And for an established business, it's great to make sure that you're retaining customers because they're growing with you and they're moving with you and you're continuing to, you know, to deal with what they need.
I would 100% would agree with that. And I think that's the key in some of the things that you've just mentioned. So you describe this process, this design thinking process for a new business, for an existing business, for a growing business, or for one that's struggling as well. It's essential for all of those businesses, isn't it?
It is, and it gives you something to get either just yourself involved in, to get an entire team involved in, to get your customers involved in. Absolutely. You know, I think that's the sort of beauty part. It's the full 360.
Absolutely, and I think for me the strength in this book, I know we said it is quite technical, and it is quite technical, but the pictures do make it. I know that sounds a bit Janet and John from me, I'm really sorry, but it's true. When you know, I'm going to flick it for you and just show you. So there is writing, and there's considerable writing in it, but there are also pictures that really perfectly illustrate. And it's almost as if they've gone through a design thinking process themselves. That
Who would have
said,
thought it, eh?
that have said,
Yeah.
we've got this really good thing, but actually people won't understand it without a picture of someone standing on the head.
And as I say, this is the one that kind of starts your journey. This gives you a basic understanding, and then you can look at whichever of the handbooks, tool books that you want, and then they've got much more in-depth exercises. So this gives you the overall mindset of design thinking. The other books then give you the exercises, the tools to actually carry it out.
And it's really powerful. It's really interesting, actually. All three books that we've reviewed today have a power in an idea, as opposed to something that is, they're not spelling out something that will give you a result. All of these books are about developing ideas, whether it was profit first with finance, whether it was lean with changing processes, or whether it's design thinking right throughout your business. It's all ideas based, isn't it?
It is, and it's all a journey. I think all three books have that sort of theme through them as well, that, we say, well, someone's been in business for 10 years, they're still having a journey. Where do they want to go next? What do they want to do with it? And I think all three of them, show that quite well,
I would agree. And the other thing I would, from a design thinking point of view, from the Playbook point of view, I think it is a step-by-step process as well. So it's, although there's a lot of text in there and they're rather nice pictures, it is also something that you can follow along with. And that description of a journey is quite appropriate for it, because it's a sort of testing and measuring journey as well. I think one thing that actually Damian touched on that I think is really pertinent for the design thinking process really is customers, isn't it? And customer feedback and testing and measuring and working out whether we're answering the right question.
I think that if sort of there's a theme that comes out of this one when you talk about the testing, the measuring, they encourage prototyping, is it's the one mindset, the one tool, whatever you want to refer to it as, that encourages you to fail. And I love that. It's that whole sort of thing. I've failed so many times, and the failures have brought more lessons to me than anything that I've ever done well. And this kind of encapsulates that completely. Fail fast, fail forward. You know what lessons you've learned, you know what you've trialled, you know what you've measured, you know what you need to do differently, and you know why your customer said yes or no to what it was that you were trying to get them to buy.
Absolutely. And I think, just to be clear though, when we talk about prototyping throughout the book, they're not just talking about a product prototype. There's a service prototype. There any business, a retail prototype, any business could use design thinking, can't they? Have you got some examples of the sorts of businesses you've used the design thinking process with?
Oh, crikey. We've used it, I have a couple of people who come in with me sometimes. We've used it with health and beauty organisations. We've used it with bricks and mortar retail organisations. We've used it with service-based businesses. And when you're saying about the prototyping, that's often the part that they're like, I'm not sure, I don't have a physical product. I can't get you to test whether that cup works to hold water or not. Does it leak? But you can actually solve a lot of your procrastination issues. It's that whole 7 out of 10 and then let's try it. Does the customer experience, does the user journey work? That's more what it's focused on for service businesses. And we've had businesses who've started out being sort of a year or two into their process, into their journey, been at 6k months, and design thinking, going back, taking it to them, and they've come to 20k months in quite a short space of time. But you do have to do the work. It's not a magic wand,
Yes.
It is still one of those things that you've got to put the time, the energy and the effort in, and you've got to be willing to let your customers see you fail if need be, but go back and say thanks because you've just helped us make something even better for you.
Absolutely. And I think design thinking, when you think about design anyway, there's a sort of creative flow with that, isn't there? But there is a discipline behind it, isn't there? So there is, it is a I suppose a process or a functionality within the business that should be integrated into your business as well. So it's not something that you go through the design thinking process, you implement it, and then you forget about it. It's an ongoing process, isn't it?
And one of the things I often find is easier to get people to do, because it can be scary to implement anything like this in a business, is that if they just implement little bits and pieces in their lives. So like Nick mentioned earlier with Profit First, do it to your own life first, just make some of these decisions, test something out. Will I like skiing? Will I like, we'll go and try it, go and see, go and learn from it. And I think if you start doing that and you start thinking like that in your own life from a small scale first, it becomes so much easier to put into your business and have faith that it will get you where you need to be, because I think that's another part. You need to have faith in the process.
It's true, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? It is a trust thing, isn't it? It's a real trust thing. So you are trusting your customer. You're trusting your customer and your relationship with your customer as well, to be able to ask those questions and get a true and honest answer. And for me, with the customers that you use this process with, or anybody that you use this process with, you don't want those people that are going to say, yes, everything you do is wonderful. You know, you don't want that. You don't want your mother that where everything is wonderful that you do and fantastic. You want the person that is critical, but in a constructive way. So the person that can give you that true advice, that true sort of feeling, and design thinking works really well with that, doesn't it?
Yeah, if ever you've had a customer that's complained and you keep kind of a list of what the complaints were, and you know, most of us probably have those in our heads because they're the things that stick with us, go back to those people. Absolutely. You know, because you know they're going to be honest with you, and because you know they're starting from the worst point of experience with you, so it can only get better. Whereas if you know you've got people who've bought from you 3, 4, 5, 6 times, they're already happy and engaged. Absolutely. Use the negative and really grow that rhino hide.
Absolutely, that's true.
And get used to, you know, if you ask for feedback, accept it.
And in the manner that it's given as
well.
well.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can be difficult to get, can't it? Okay, so the other thing that I really like about design thinking is that it is, once you implement it into your business, it's impactful into the rest of your life as well. And lots of the people from a peer group that we attended America with use design thinking, but you don't necessarily realise that you're using design thinking in all aspects of your life. But the truth is, suddenly your brain clicks into design thinking, doesn't it?
It is a mindset. When people talk about it and they say sort of, oh, it's a process, it's a set of resources, it's that kind of thing. It's actually a mindset. It's something that you get used to and you just find becomes an automatic flow. You know, it's kind of I guess an extension of a growth mindset almost.
Do you think there's a time that we should stop using design thinking as a business process within our businesses?
I would never say that you would stop using a process that allows you to continue to evolve and develop, because as soon as you stop evolving and develop as a small business owner, your customers leave you because they're on that journey with you.
Absolutely.
So just continue, and once it's there, it's second nature. You know, it's not as though you're thinking, I must go away and implement this process now. It just happens automatically.
Absolutely, and I would completely agree with that. So I was going to ask you one more question, Lucy, because thank you so much for everything that you've said. You started this process with design thinking a number of years ago now. What was the thing you think that at the beginning stimulated you to think about design thinking as a process?
Well, I think we've probably mentioned this previously, but I went to see a TEDx talk, and it was Clara Gagaro-Westaway. I know. From an organisation called Special Projects, and she was demonstrating a product that they'd actually just created. And it sounds crazy, but my mind was blown because the product actually made the service of something else so much easier. And I went away and I sort of started digging around and looking more at what was out there. And I've never looked back with it. I really haven't.
And I would agree. You know, we've been really lucky with the 3 books that we started Book Club with, because actually all 3 of those books are really impactful books that can make a difference. For me, overall, design thinking is a real change that people should implement into their business, and they will see an impact pretty quickly. And you know, like all business owners, if you're investing the time, if you're going to read a book, if you're going to learn a new process, you want to see the results pretty quickly, don't you?
Yeah.
And that's the good thing about design thinking, is you can see results. They may not be the results that you want to see, but you will see those results really quickly.
The results that will help you get to where you want to be, though.
Absolutely.
So that's the important part.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Lucy, for joining us. Actually, do we have any questions from the audience? No? I've got one more question for you, Lucy. So if we wanted to use your services in terms of the process that you would go through for design thinking, how would we get hold of you?
You can find me online at Flourish Unlimited. You can find me Lucy Flourish Unlimited or Lucy Flourish across most social media channels. Yeah.
And the people that are watching the live stream in the Facebook group, the EMS Flipping Good Facebook group, Lucy is also a member of that group, and so if you ever want to speak to her, to get to know her, to work out more about design thinking, then Lucy always
happy to chat.
She always responds to messages. So our final book was the Design Thinking Playbook. It's published by Wiley, and it's by Michael Lorick, Patrick Link, and Larry Leifer. Our second book that we read, just to remind you, was The Lean Startup by Eric Rees. And we thank Damian Warriner for joining us and reviewing that one. And our very first book was Profit First, Mike Michalowicz. I've said it, I've got it right every time apart from that time. I'm really sorry. Mike Michalowicz. And that was reviewed by Nick Wetherell, our marketing manager here at EMS. Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody that's joined us. I have an outro that I'm supposed to read as well. So let me tell you about it. So this has been officially our very first Book Club Live. We've live streamed to you. I promise you the next time that we do it, it will look different and feel different. But I think for a very first time, behind the scenes, you can't see what's been going on. But I want to say a really big thanks to James Ibbotson, Nick Wetherell, and Gabby, who's really quiet and behind there, who's helped us immeasurably bring this to you. We're learning as well, so this is a whole design thinking process actually for us. So we value your comments, what you've liked, what you haven't liked, what we could change. One of the things that we are going to review for our next book club is one of the books that we'll review is going to be a biography of somebody famous in business that's motivational as well. And we'll let you know soon who our guests are and what those books are, and also the date of the next Book Club Live. So we've been reading today Profit First, the Design Thinking Playbook, and the Lean Startup. If you've enjoyed today's show, and I hope you have, and you've read a book recently that you could recommend to us all, we would love to know. Well, I know Lucy is like me and a voracious reader, but the rest of us that are watching this as well, if you can recommend it in different formats. So if you've listened to it and it's been a particularly good listen, or if you've read it, or if there's something that stands out about it, please recommend it to us, and we might even invite you to be a guest to talk about it on Book Club Live. So if you've read something and you want to be a guest, let us know. If you've read a book and you don't want to be a guest, let us know. And if you want to be part of the whole Book Club Live process, that would be really good. I'm going to give you one more bit of information as I've just been reminded and I forgot about it. On the 31st of March 2022, something very big is happening for EMS. We're running our very first festival. So we're having Business Fest 2022 and everybody's invited. We have a very, very famous guest speaker, and it's not me obviously, a true famous guest speaker, and we have some big surprises up our sleeve. We'll let you know more about it. This is the first time we've announced it anywhere, and I can tell you that there's a prize as well for some brand new businesses, and we've established something called Business in a Box, which is literally the accommodation, the desk, the computer, the insurance, everything that you would need, the marketing, everything you would need to start a business. So if you know somebody who's looking to start a business that is having some issues or feels excited about that business and needs some help, then we have a competition for you. We'll tell you more about it in the Facebook group. I'll give you one more bit of information as well. During March, in my day job as an author actually, I'm off to America to promote both In Cahoots, but a brand new book as well. And there's some exciting things happening. So throughout the group in March, you will get quite a lot of live stream from me, and I'm off to Hollywood. So I'll live stream from Hollywood as we go along. It's an adventure. There's a documentary about it. Get ready for it. We'll see you very, very soon. So thanks so much for joining us on Book Club Live. Our next Book Club Live is in March. before Business Fest, I believe. I'm looking at everybody who's shaking their heads. It's in April. It's in April, it's not in March. I'm really sorry. So our next book club live is in April. Don't forget to join in. Unlike me, who just turns up and says the things, the people behind the scenes actually know what's going on. Our next book club live is in April. We'll see you very, very soon. And thanks, Lucy, for joining us. Thanks, Damian. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, everybody out there as well who's taken the time to watch this. See you soon.